NFL Week 10 features 11 games on Sunday. We have a game being played early in the United States due to the Buccaneers and Seahawks playing in Germany, and we end the day with the night game between the Chargers and the 49ers. Let's get into it. The Bucs are the favorites in this game in Germany over the Seahawks. Seattle is one of the biggest surprise teams this year, sitting at 6-3, while Tampa Bay is just 4-5. Still, the Bucs are the favorites by 2.5 points to come away with a win in a 44-point total projected game. For daily fantasy players, no one has been able to be trusted on the Buccaneers side, but the rookie Kenneth Walker has been a fantasy sensation for the Seahawks. He will be one of the most expensive players in this game. The early games kick off with the Browns facing the Dolphins. This is one of the higher projected scoring games at 49, and for good reason. Miami has been one of the most electrifying offenses with Tua, Hill, and Waddle. They are the favorites to win the game by 4 points. A sneaky play at quarterback this week for daily fantasy players could be the Browns quarterback Brissett. He has a big arm and can run a little bit against a Miami defense that gave up 32 and 27 points to the Bears and Lions in back-to-back weeks. Following one of the higher projected scoring games, we now have the lowest projected total game on Sunday at 39 points. The Broncos will go on the road to face the Titans, and both of these teams will look to run the ball. That means the clock will be ticking, and we may not see a lot of points in this one. The Titans are the favorites by 3 points after a really strong start to the year. They lost last week in overtime to the Titans, but should get their quarterback Ryan Tannehill back this week. It could be a nightmare figuring out Denver's backfield this week, and they should be kept away from similarly to the majority of this game for DFS purposes. Two of the worst teams in the NFL, with 5 combined wins, will face off as the Bears are 3-point favorites over the Lions. Chicago has looked much improved, but it could be an ugly game. The points total is set surprisingly high at 48.5 for two teams who have a combined points per game total of just 43, and both have inflated numbers due to each playing against Miami. Justin Fields has been a fantasy gem recently, as he has improved his fantasy points each of the last 4 weeks and ended with over 45 DraftKings points last week. In what could be another unpleasant game to watch, we have the Texans playing against the Giants in New York. The Giants are big favorites at 6.5 points, and this game is projected to be low scoring at 40.5 total points. Houston has struggled mightily this year to score the ball, as their highest scoring total in a game is just 24, and they have 1 win to show for themselves. They also don't have much fantasy relevance at all outside of the rookie running back Dameon Pierce. For the Giants, they will look to get back on track after losing last week, where Saquon had his lowest rushing total of the season so far. The largest projected points spread total on Sunday is the Chiefs covering 9.5 points over the Jaguars at home. This shouldn't come as a surprise, as well as this game having the highest points total on the day, either at 50.5. Patrick Mahomes has spread the ball around to his weapons after losing Tyreek Hill this year. It is hard to say who will be the main beneficiary between Kels, Juju, and Hardman. For the Jaguars, Etienne has been very impressive with 3 straight games over 100 yards, rushing with a touchdown, and is a fair price this week in daily fantasy. After losing last week, the Bills are 6-point favorites against one of the few teams with a better record than them, the Vikings. This game has a 45.5 point projected total and could easily eclipse that number if these offenses are rolling like we have seen at times this year. Adding the average points per game for both these teams so far this year gets you well above 50. It is never seen as a bad idea to fire up these teams' quarterbacks or their wide receivers in daily fantasy. Another matchup here that could turn ugly in the first afternoon game. The Colts play the Raiders in Las Vegas in a low projected total game at 42.5. Las Vegas is the favorites by 6 points, as this Colts team has been in shambles due to injuries to their running backs, benching their quarterback, and also not being able to stop anyone on offense. It seems every week, though, that the Raiders disappoint and don't meet their projections. They could choose to go back to their running game with Josh Jacobs in this one, who could make a fine daily fantasy play. An NFC West matchup where the Cardinals go into Los Angeles to take on the Rams has a lower total than you would have expected heading into the season at just 43.5. It has been a struggle to get offense going for the Rams, but the Cardinals have recently been finding more success. The Rams are 3-point favorites in what projects to be one of the closest games on Sunday. Rondale Moore is a cheaper option who could hit value in daily fantasy this week, as he has averaged 9 targets the past 2 games. The Cowboys are 5.5-point favorites as they head into Lambeau to face the Packers. At 43 projected points, this is a low total game, and it is especially a low implied total for Green Bay. This is probably for good reason, as the Packers have had a wealth of injuries on offense and have averaged just 17 points per game this year. It would not be advised to target any Packers players in daily fantasy, but there could be some value in these Cowboys wide receivers. In the Sunday night football game, we have the Chargers facing the 49ers on the road. The 49ers are 7-point favorites in a game with a projected total of 46.5 points. These teams offensively are trending in different directions, as the Chargers have failed to score more than 23 in their past 3 games, and the 49ers unleashed one of the best weapons in the NFL last week, C-Mac, who had 3 touchdowns himself. It could be interesting to see how the probable return of Keenan Allen affects the Chargers' offense and how he does as a low-priced DFS receiver.